Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Welcome to episode 79 of the Resilient Retail Game Plan. My name's Catherine Erdley and I'm your host as well as the founder of the Resilient Retail Club. That's my membership group for product businesses. You can find out more at resilientretailclub.com. And if you use the code 10podcast, that's 10podcast, then you can get £10 off your first month. I'm really excited about today's guest. She is the founder of a multi-million pound jewellery business. Her name is Connie Nam. She is the founder and CEO of Astrid Miyu. And I think you're going to love hearing what she has to say about her business journey so far and what really made the difference to the growth of the business. Connie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's great to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Do you want to kick us off by telling us all a little bit about you and your business?
Yeah, of course. So where do I start? So I grew up between two different cultures. I was born in Seoul, but I also grew up near Washington, D.C. area. And I went back and forth growing up as a child. As a family unit, we used to travel a lot around the world, which, I'm really thankful for. And alongside that, like my mom and I, we used to always go to markets, and one of our favorite pastimes would be just finding jewelry in the market. So jewelry was always a huge part of my life and my family, especially my mom, of course. Yeah. So the inspiration of Astrid Miyu comes from that. And I started my career in investment banking, which is completely different from jewelry. However, I always had this entrepreneurial itch and I got burnt out by my fourth year. So I quit and I always wanted to come to London. I applied for business school here. And I was kind of soul searching. I always knew I wanted to be in fashion or jewelry. So I worked for LVMH for a bit. But then, that entrepreneurial itch didn't go away. So I wanted to start something after I graduated. And I was just looking at different categories in fashion, not necessarily in jewelry. But if I look at different categories, there were so many cool brands out there. I felt like I couldn't compete. Whereas jewelry, there seemed to be this market of branded category. So a lot of people were buying from markets or travels like how I used to with my mom. And branded jewelry was not a huge category. And when I tried to shop, I always wanted that sentimental element. And if I looked at the high street, everything seemed really stale. So I kind of wanted to combine all of that, all of my experience and all of my needs of wanting that sentiment and experience and bring it to the high street. And that's how Astrid Miyu was born. And here we are.
So can you just tell us then, when did you actually get started with Astrid Miyu?
So I started 10 years ago. So this year will be our 10-year anniversary. I started in 2012. So I started ideating in 2011 when I graduated from my MBA, and I launched the business in 2012.
And I have to ask, so who are Astrid and Miyu?
So these are fictional characters.
Okay.
There's a whole backstory behind it, but essentially Astrid is inspired by my sister, who's an artist, pianist, and Miyu is inspired by me, but a cooler version of me. So she's a business person, entrepreneur, and both of them have very international backgrounds and very cosmopolitan. They both live in London. So I kind of wanted to bring these characters that personify what Astrid Miyu stands for. So these girls are, well-traveled. They're very cosmopolitan. They're very open, and they have very diverse backgrounds. And they're up for meeting new people. And they're a combination of creative and business.
I love that. So I have to tell a little story. Then I have a fabulous yoga teacher, Martina, and came to a lesson and she was wearing a beautiful gold pendant with her zodiac sign on. And I said, "Oh, I love your necklace." And she said, "Oh, it's from my favorite brand, it's from Astrid Miyu. And I said, that's so funny because we're going to be talking on the podcast with Connie. And I said, I'd love to know from you, like, why is it your favorite brand? So she's in her 20s and she said, well, I really feel like there isn't much out there for people my age that's an accessible price point, that's got ethical considerations. So, it's well made. And funnily enough, she bought her sister a pendant from Astrid Miyu. They kind of had matching pendants. And she said it just really captures, like you said, it's like a bit cooler and it's a bit more accessible, and it's women buying for women. And I was reading another interview that you did, and you said that there's a big element of that gifting, almost women gifting to themselves and gifting to each other. Was that something that was kind of built in right from the start?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's so nice to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Yeah, gifting is such a huge part. Like, traditionally, if you look at the consumer behavior of jewelry or fine jewelry, it's generally men buying for women, which I thought was completely outdated because I would normally buy jewelry for myself. So I really wanted to bring that element in. And even for Valentine's, we don't really do the traditional men buying for women. We do girlfriends buying for girlfriends, or like friends buying for friends. It doesn't need to be like girls. It could be like boys, or, they could be anyone buying for their friends and themselves.
So it was a real niche that you'd identified then that. So I'm trying to cast my mind back 10 years. I guess it would have been like you would have to go to almost like an established jeweler, or, like a chain jewelers. And as you said, that sentimentality. So do you find a large proportion of your bestsellers are that kind of, there's some element of symbolism to it, whether it's zodiac or initials or something that means something?
Yeah, I mean, zodiacs have been our most popular collection last year. I wouldn't say it's majority. We do have a lot of classic items like the classic hoops or the classic huggies that sell really well. However, like this element is a huge part of the brand for sure.
You've been going for 10 years. You've seen enormous growth. Have there been any real pinch me moments along the way where something happened that you were just like, wow, I can't believe this is happening? Or I suppose another way of putting it, what was the point at which you kind of realized this was going to be a real success?
There are a few moments. So firstly, being stocked in Selfridges, this was back in 2017. That was a huge moment because that was my, like, the retailer that I wanted to be in. And obviously, like, opening our first store in 2015, but also like rolling out our services and like seeing that massive growth in our stores, allowing us to have 9 store footprints now. And then, like, alongside that, opening our first Notting Hill store was a huge pinch me moment because that's where I started. I started out in a tiny flat in Notting Hill. So just going back to that area, opening a store on Westbourne Grove, where I used to like stroll around and thought, like, I really want to be on this street. It's so aspirational. Like, it's so cool. So that's, those are some of the pinch me moments. And another one is like Jessica Alba wearing one of our hoop earrings was like so massive because I'm such a huge fan of Jessica.
Oh, that's amazing. And do you feel like, I mean, we call it rapid growth, but I suppose over 10 years, it's often easy to look at a business and say, well, that's happened so fast. But of course, it's a long journey over 10 years. But it has grown hugely. Were there any kind of scary moments, anything where it suddenly felt like maybe it was, because growth is both exhilarating, but it can also be kind of nerve-wracking too, right?
Yeah. I mean, there were some scary moments on every stage, but I'm generally not that scared. But something that I guess I'm wary of along the way is like every time I have to give up a little bit of control, that's quite scary. So the first one was when I raised external capital in 2015, I raised a small amount from angel investors. So that was a scary moment because I had to be accountable to someone else, some other group of investors, and really, deliver what I promised. So that was quite scary. And then like just building out a team and having to let go because now I don't really know every single detail of the business. Whereas probably like 3-4 years ago, I used to know every single detail of like even how to upload products and like where stock is and like everything. I used to know everything. So just having to let go of control to a certain degree was probably scary. And now having to shift my mentality from being a founder to a proper CEO because now we're a mid-sized company. So that's been quite scary as well.
How many team members do you have now?
So we probably have around 160 people
Wow.
in the business. So 60 in the office, rest in retail.
Wow, that's incredible. And so how did you manage that process? Because a lot of people listening will be product businesses who will be starting out, who will be looking to grow, who will be looking at your success and be somewhere along that journey. And I know one of the things, that control piece that you talked about is, I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. That's the one thing that people really, it's that real moment where you move from being that single founder to recognizing that you can't, what's got you here isn't going to be what gets you there. So do you have any kind of tips or anything that you learned? Like, how do you let go?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a difficult question. And that's such a difficult thing, especially for a founder, because I think the nature of founders in general is like we love controlling things. But I think you just need to recognize and let go of your ego and understand if you're hiring great people, you're hiring them to leverage their expertise. They'll be better like in every single aspect than you are. So in order to grow the business and make the business better, you need to let go of control and let these people flourish and empower them. So the mindset is one thing. But another thing is at the end of the day, you need to be able to orchestrate the business. So having good control systems and reporting, I think, is so important. And having that big vision strategy so that everyone has one direction to follow. And then they can create their own departmental vision.
Right. So having the strategy, having the vision, having the controls in place. It's not like you're just literally walking away and not having any view of what's happening. But then I suppose a big piece of that's trust, right? Trusting that you bring the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Setting that one like vision piece and then stepping away so that they can run with it.
No, I think you're right. I think the key thing there is also it's finding those people to trust. And I suppose, do you feel like it's almost like it's better to wait and be really, really sure than to delegate something if you don't trust someone?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So recruitment is such a huge part of our process. I want to make sure that I'm getting the right person that I can fully trust, who has the capability, but who's also aligned with our culture and values as well. So our recruitment process is very, very long. So for a leadership position, like they probably go through 5-6 rounds.
Right. But then once they're in, I always love that phrase, you recruit hard and manage easy.
Yeah. I think, that's so spot on, because if you recruit the right people, you don't need to manage them.
Right. Because then you can get out of the way and let them do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the product a bit, sort of touched on the kind of the vision of the business at the beginning, and obviously how that's captured the customer's imagination. And I mean, just looking at, for example, your Instagram, you can see you've got a really engaged customer base. So how do you feel that the key here has been really about tapping into what that customer needs, and then that really builds that brand loyalty, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And being really authentic and true to who we are. I think people really resonate generally with us because we're being really honest and authentic. And our tone of voice, if you look at our Instagram or our emails, we just speak like a normal human being. We want to make our customers feel like they can come to us if they're having a bad day. We're just right next door. So I think that's been like a huge driver of engagement for us.
And do you feel like your product offering has evolved over time as well? So from when you started, the kind of things that you envisage for the brand, or do you feel like it's still stayed really true to that original vision?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty true to the original vision, because I quickly figured out that it was this very dainty, fine jewelry, like fashion jewelry, that was missing in the market. There's a lot of cool brands out there now doing fine demi jewelry, but back then, 10 years ago, it didn't exist, and it's still going really strong. And obviously, our product offering is much stronger because we have a stronger product team. We have a merchandising team who does analysis, whereas before it was just based on my gut feelings, and we didn't have enough data. So it's evolved in a much more positive and organized way. But I think the vision didn't really change.
And how did you go about figuring out the services? So you've added, so in your physical stores, for example, I'd love to talk to you more about physical stores in general, but now with the physical stores, you've added services to complement the product. So again, was that part of the original vision, or is that something that's kind of grown up as you've developed?
Yeah, it's the latter. It's kind of organically grown. So initially, We started off with piercing in 2018. I went to New York and I saw these piercing parties happening in a small scale at membership clubs or with the press. And I thought, oh, that's a really cool idea. We should actually bring this back. So we started this off by offering it to influencers, and they were so popular. So we rolled out to our customers once a week in one location. They always got fully booked within the 30 minutes of launch. So we started rolling it out 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And then that became such a powerful tool to drive traffic and also get our customers engaged. So we rolled that out to all of our stores. And by then we were so well known for our ear jewelry. So it just made sense to branch out to piercing. And then we started the welding services and the tattooing because we thought like the services are really getting our customers excited and engaged. And it was something else that we could talk about. And it was something that's very different from what we're offering online. And I think with physical retail, you've always got to offer something that's very different from what you offer online, whether it's the services we offer, but even like simple things like having a very personalized customer service, having great people on the ground. I think all of those things really help in growing physical retail.
Yeah, and physical retail has been a really core part of your strategy in recent years, for sure, right? Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how important do you think that they've been to opening physical stores? How important do you think that's been to the growth of the brand?
Critical. Like absolutely critical, because we're also like adding another experience to our online customers. So we get our online customers to come visit the store, learn about the story more, and really experience what we're about in terms of personality, but all these service offerings. But we also acquire new customers through this by like walk-ins or, like especially in locations like Selfridges, we get a different kind of demographic.
You get that kind of discovery customer that might not have ever put your search terms into Google, but literally walk past and see you.
Yeah, exactly.
And how many stores do you have now in total? We were just talking about how you opened 3 right before Christmas.
Yeah. So we've got nine storefronts. So 2 of them are Selfridges concessions, 1 in London and 1 in Manchester. And the other 7 are standalone stores in London.
That's fantastic. It's really interesting so it's such a fascinating discussion, and it's something that I find so interesting, this relationship between physical retail and e-commerce, because obviously, the kind of received wisdom is that everything's moving online. But I think that you really brought up a crucial point there about how you're using the store as very much a complement to your online, as almost like an additional offering to your online customers, as opposed to seeing them as competing with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to make them work together. You can't compete. And even our incentives within the team, like retail get incentivized for e-commerce sales, e-commerce get incentivized by retail sales. So we're all collaborating together because we're serving one customer.
Yeah. Oh no, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's been the really, and I think that's what the big retailers, the legacy retailers have been struggling to do, is kind of recalibrate to the fact that you've got to, as you say, incentivize it, and you have to look at not just the store sales that happen within the 4 walls, but everything that happens around it. So the person who saw the storefront and then searched online, or the person who looked at something online and then came into the store. So this idea of the customer journey getting longer and crossing over. And is that something that you've seen with your customers, that they cross, that they do tend to be multi-channel, that obviously the ones that are in London, that do you see that behavior from your own customers?
Yeah, absolutely. We still have a lot of customers that are shopping in single channel, naturally, because we don't have stores outside of London. However, if we look at customers that shop in both channels, they just tend to be much more loyal and sticky, and they just buy more, and they're much more engaged with all of our activities like social media or email engagement and everything. So I think it's so important to get your customers to engage in all channels.
And do you have specific ways that you maximize that behavior? We said I love that word, sticky. So the sort of to create those sticky customers. Is there any mechanisms, or do you think it comes down to that real traditional, real just great customer service?
Yeah, I think there's the traditional element, great customer service, great content, and the great feeling that people get when they come. But we also analyze data quite heavily. So we make sure that we try to sign up all of our customers to our database so we can analyze which channels they're shopping and what kind of value they're creating. So capturing those data are so crucial if you want to really see the impact.
And then you can really understand, and then you can understand their behavior, right? You can understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you can see the correlation between like what kind of products they buy versus like which channel they go to versus what kind of content they engage with.
Right. Do you find it, because it's interesting, sometimes you see like a real clear correlation between what people buy online, what your online bestsellers are and your in-store bestsellers. And sometimes it actually can feel quite different. Do you find that people buy different things online, or is it actually your bestsellers are your bestsellers and it's about encouraging that omni-channel behavior, that crossing over from online to offline?
Yeah, we see a lot of consistency across channels in terms of our bestsellers, but in the stores, we tend to sell higher priced items a lot more just because they can. I think it's because people can come and touch and feel and see the quality. So we sell a lot more solid gold items in the stores. We sell a lot of higher price points over £100 in the stores.
Right. And that's so interesting. Yeah, I suppose it's that confidence, isn't it? When you see something in the flesh, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if they can try it on and touch and feel, they'll definitely convert. Whereas I think online shoppers, they probably compare everything in the universe and try to find value. And also like in the stores, we do attract slightly older customers as well, in the who live in the area or who work in the area. So that could be a contributing factor as well.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Do you think that online technology is ever going to get to the point where they can do a reasonable job of replicating what it's like to actually try something on? So of course, I read a lot about retail tech, and I'm always really interested in, sometimes they create these things and you think, okay, but is it actually going to drive sales? So, whether it's AR or people being able to sort of virtually try things on. I mean, do you think that has a role to play, or do you think that people are always going to want that in real life experience, or perhaps even value it even more than they used to?
I think it will be a combination of two. So we're definitely looking at AI for like piercing and welding and all of these things. And I do think that there's a future for this. But however, you can't really replicate that human touch and the atmosphere that you feel, the smell, all the sensory experiences that you can, feel when you walk into a store. So I think there's a space for both.
That's such a good point. I remember talking to a visual merchandising specialist, and she said, your store is not a store, it's a feeling. Yeah. I thought that was
that's very spot on. Yeah, it is a feeling, it's a vibe.
Yeah, you mentioned there as well about learning more about the story. So do you think that's an important part of the role of a physical store, is that kind of brand storytelling?
Yeah, absolutely. And for us, for instance, every single location we go to, we tailor a design to make sure that we can replicate what that area stands for.
Oh, I love that. So for each one, you're kind of picking up the personality of the local area.
Yeah, yes. And we have characters behind every single store as well. They're friends of Astrid Miyu, but they come from different walks of life.
Oh, I love that. So for every store, there's a character. So it's Astrid Miyu and somebody else. Do you talk about that in the stores? Do you have that actually explained, or is that just kind of something internally you talk about?
Yeah, it's an internal, I guess, concept, but like we can certainly talk about it in the future.
I love that. That's such a great idea. I think that's one of the fascinating things about retail, especially when you're talking about chains. I feel like chain probably sounds like an unkind word to say, but it's not. It's just multiple location, I suppose, retailer, I should say. But yeah, it's like, how do you both impose the brand values, but then also reflect the personality of the local area as well? It's a really great, fun, unique challenge.
Yeah, it is. It's really fun.
What do you see ahead in the future or going forward?
Oh gosh, so many exciting things. So firstly, we have international plans. So we've launched sites in Germany and the US, dedicated websites, and we are looking at physical retail. And depending on where COVID, I guess, situation lands on and the market conditions, we are planning on opening physical retail out there. Mm-hmm. And also in the UK, just making sure that we have market dominance in this market because we're very London centric still. Mm-hmm. So opening up regional stores will be a huge part of the brand growth this year. And then like just doing what we do well, like constantly innovating and offering what our customers love.
A quick question about store locations. So is that then the benefit of, if you have a website, that you can then start seeing where your customers are concentrated when it comes to actually choosing your stores?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
How are you feeling about, well, obviously physical retail is really important for Astrid Miyu, and you've really proven that it can really boost your brand, and with everything, you've got the in-store proposition and the services and everything else to differentiate it. How do you see the kind of physical shopping shifting in general as we move forward? Do you think that there is that real appetite for exciting new brands to come to areas because people are still hungry for that shopping experience?
Brands will adopt more experience into the stores, which I see a lot of brands doing already. The traditional just displaying products probably won't work. And I think we need to really amp up customer services in the high street as well.
Focus on what online can't offer, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like either having additional services or experience or having amazing customer services.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I just want to finish up with one last question. So if anyone's listening to this podcast and they're thinking to themselves, it's amazing to watch your growth, to see what you've achieved, and they're maybe at the sort of beginning part of the journey, is there any sort of words of wisdom that maybe you wish you'd known at the beginning, or anything that you've learned along the way that you'd like to share?
I would say building a brand takes a lot of time. So just be patient. If you think it's not picking up in a year or two, like you've got a long way ahead. I feel like we only hit a tipping point in 2018 when we really had this experience component in our store. So that took me 6 years. So just be patient and, just push along. That's one advice I'd give. And also like trust in your gut instincts.
Be patient, trust in your gut instinct, and stay true to your vision, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you want to find out more about Astrid and Miyu, then you can find all of their links in the show notes. And when I come over to say hi at Resilient Retail Club over on Instagram, let me know what you took away from this episode, what your favourite part was. And of course, do feel free to share where you are, where you're listening to the podcast. I love to see the pictures of where people are tuning in from. In the meantime, though, if you have a moment to rate and review the podcast, it would absolutely mean the world to me. Spotify has now added ratings as well, so you can go into the Spotify app and add your rating there on the show page. And of course, if you hit subscribe or follow, you'll be the first to know about every new episode. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, then I invite you to check out resilientretailclub.com. The Resilient Retail Club is the membership for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable product business. No more trawling Google trying to find the answers to your questions, or wading through general business advice that speaks mainly to service-based businesses. Whether you're still at the idea stage or you've been going for a while but want to get more focused and organised when it comes to your business, the Resilient Retail Club is the place for you. With a library of courses tailored to creative product businesses, several live sessions a month, and a supportive and active community, the Resilient Retail Club is the perfect membership to help you hit your goals faster. Check it out at resilientretailclub.com.